Welcome to Bracket Busters, a podcast where we talk everything March Madness. That means star players and teams looking to make a deep run, as well as those aiming to blow up your bracket. I'm your host, Naya Leveretter, and each week we'll be taking a deep dive into the analysis, the storylines, and the madness because we know there's always a ton to look forward to. Today I'm joined by one of my former coaches, Nia Butts. Nia Butts is a former Division I women's basketball head coach, current sports analyst, real estate agent, and investor. She's also a two-time NCAA national champion at the University of Tennessee. She later coached at Tennessee Tech University, the University of Kentucky, Michigan State University, and also served as head coach at the University of Arizona. After retiring from coaching, Nia transitioned into entrepreneurship and now helps individuals and families build stability and generational wealth through home ownership, while also calling collegiate basketball games for the SEC network. Her message to students focuses on discipline, preparation, and believing in what's possible. First of all, thank you so much for hopping on here. I was really excited that you down for this. I always try to reach out to people who truly know the game, and I was like, let me just reach out to one of my coaches. So I was like, let me
Yeah, I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did. It's good to be here. I appreciate it. I feel honored.
Yes. Okay, so we always start Mondays with the Monday Madness meter, and this is just where we break down the moment that best captured the chaos of the tournament. Lots of impressive stat lines and must-see matchups, a lot of history and jaw-dropping highlights this week, but I want to focus on Olivia Miles down at TCU. She set a record this week on her home court at TCU with her 12th career triple-double. She's only the third player to have multiple in the NCAA tournament with 12 points and a career high of 16 rebounds and 14 assists as a third seeded TCU beat UC San Diego 86-40 in the first round. When I saw this come through on my ESPN, I was like, okay, it's one thing to be a guard who can score, create your own shot, but to also do that while creating shots for your teammates on both sides of the ball is just impressive. So as a coach, what's your perspective, or can you speak to the importance of a guard that can score and create for others?
Well, first of all, when you have players, guards, posts that can create and get their own shots, it's helps your team in a very phenomenal way, dynamic way. And someone like Olivia Miles, who she's not only a special talent, but she makes everyone around her better. And, there are a lot of guards in the country that can just score, right? But to be able to create and distribute the basketball in such a way, and she's fun. She's fun to watch, right? There's fundamental, right? She does some fundamental things, but she's also pretty flashy at times, and that makes it good for the crowds, the viewers, people who are watching the game. So you can't beat that.
Now, I know I have only seen you as a coach. To dig back and think about your best March Madness memory as a player at Tennessee.
Oh my goodness.
So it's hard to pinpoint, but
Yeah, right, right. It was a long time ago, but wow. Um, I would have to say the first championship, 97, 1996-97 season, because it was a year of first for us. For me as a freshman, Tennessee as a program, we had a lot of things that were not good to happen to us that year. And we ended up winning the national championship that year. And we had to go through some phenomenal teams, phenomenal players, but it was probably the championship game. Tisha Pinachero for Old Dominion, who is now a sports agent for a lot of WNBA players, who was a fantastic point guard. And earlier that season, we lost to Old Dominion.
mm,
And beating them in the championship game and having the task of guarding her and trying to perhaps slow them down was incredible. So that was probably one of my best memories. And then after the game, just being able to celebrate with my teammates who had fought so hard. There were a lot of it. There was a lot of adversity, a lot, and to come back and win it all at the end was special.
no, that's dope. Okay, what about as a coach, your favorite March Madness memory?
Oh my goodness. It's gonna be crazy because I'm gonna use a recent memory.
Okay.
It was not necessarily the NCAA tournament yet. There you go.
We go.
There you go. It was probably, obviously, the SEC tournament championship in 2022, I believe it was. It was March, and once March starts, all bets are off, whether that's conference tournaments or that's NCAA tournament. And so for me, because that year was, again, there were some challenging times, but to come together as a unit, and we played 4 days.
Yeah.
That was a time when there were no buys. We didn't get a buy. We didn't have a double buy. We didn't have a single buy. We had to play. And we went through the top teams in the country at that time. And then the eventual national champion we beat in the championship game of the SEC tournament. So I thought it was a special time, special moment.
Yeah, no, when you were talking about your win at Tennessee and like a trying season, just a lot of things to celebrate with your team after the fact, that's definitely what I was thinking of. My first March Madness experience, you remember COVID in San
Yes.
Antonio. Oh my gosh. I feel like that was a fever dream. Like that was just the weirdest way for that to be the first experience of March Madness. So for you, your freshman year, success and so much fun. Mine was just like out of the ordinary, something that nobody could have imagined.
It
But
was a wild time.
yeah,
And the crazy part about that, it's been 6 years ago.
that doesn't even feel like 6 years ago. Feels like it feels like a decade ago. Like it feels like
Right.
2 years ago, and I'm only 23. So that's
Yes. Yes. Yes.
okay, so you talked a little bit about SEC tournament and playing back-to-back days. So now in this tournament, a lot of these games have like a 1 day gap between the first and second round. As a coach, what is the urgency or change of pace in scouting to prep for some of these games for teams that you may not play during regular season or conference play, the teams that you really just don't know that much about yet?
Right. Well, the prep comes on selection night, right? When you see your name pop up and you see who's in your bracket, and you start to, as coaches, all right, I take this opponent, somebody else takes that opponent. And so we start collecting data, watching film, you know, in the event that you're going to play that team. But it's pretty quick. You don't have time to kind of, worry too much about the game you just played. You have to quickly move on, cover mistakes quickly, and then it's on to the next. March is about surviving and advancing, period. Not much else.
And then what skill or piece of a team rises in importance in March compared to regular season? So what stands out to you more of your team in postseason besides regular season?
The ability to defend and to adjust game plans. You're going to be scouting different teams with very different styles sometimes, and your ability as a player and as a coach to teach what you want to do, to have that be relatable to your team, and for that player to switch from perhaps going over a ball screen to now trapping a ball screen to going under a ball screen. All of those things play a part in your ability to be successful.
Now I want to move to recaps and previews of the first round. So first I want to bring up Nebraska and Baylor. Baylor won. Talia Scott was clutch in the last 30 seconds to secure the win for Baylor. Next one I want to go on to is Ole Miss. I was a little skeptical about this one. We played Gonzaga. I know Ole Miss is like really known for their defense and just the energy around that program. You and I both know that very well. But they had a lot of balanced scoring between Cody, Latasha, and Sierra. All of them were in double figures, so that kind of helped them dominate in the paint because they have size. But then on top of that size, you also have the strength to go with it. So Gonzaga had their hands full. And then I want to move on to North Carolina State and Tennessee. I hate to do this to you, Coach, but I really do.
Are you sure you hate to do it to me?
No,
Man,
I really did. I really had to. And the reason why is because of a specific player, Zamaria Jones. She's one of 6 players that scored 30 points in the first round. I'm sure you guys recruited her when she was coming out of middle school and high school.
she's one of those kids that was recruited for a long time, when
Yeah.
you were good for so long. But you know what? I was happy for her because she's obviously a competitor. fierce competitor, and you were able to see that on display. I don't think she been checked out of the game. I mean, I think she played uh, the entire game, and to play with such energy and such passion for 40 minutes, that's tough to do. But you can tell it was sheer will, and not only that, met with ability and talent, and it made for a special night for her.
Yeah, I remember watching her in AAU days, like Deep South in Raleigh, and she was always playing up, but she was just so tiny back then. But me and my dad would always look and be like, "Oh, like she's gonna be good. Like she's gonna go somewhere and change a program and play a heavy role." So that was really exciting to see that. I want to move on to Southern Cal and Clemson now. Um, Clemson had a wild shot that just ended up not counting. Nia Moore was 1 millisecond off from winning it for the Tigers. On the flip side, Jazzy Davidson led the way with 31 points. And we always talk about freshmen stepping up and having their March Madness moment. I think she really did that. So, as a coach, what are your emotions when you see a young star making an instant impact like Jazzy has?
A lot. You just sit back and watch, and you shake your head oftentimes because it's meeting the moment, right? A young player like that, to understand the stage that they're on and be able to produce and perform, that's a whole nother thing. Talking, you can do that, right? Anybody can do that. But to show up and actually play the way they have been playing is something special. And it was a tough game. And a lot of players stepped up and made a lot of plays. But at the end of the day, you know, you only have to score one more point than the other team. And, that's what happened. It was unfortunate for Clemson that the shot didn't count. It was awfully close.
Yeah.
I believe the backboard was a teller because that light was still on. But if you just looked at the clock, right? If you're a viewer watching the game and you're like, oh, I think she got it all.
Right.
But when you really slow it down frame by frame, the ball is still on her hands, her fingertips. So it was tough. Tough call, but more, she's a tough kid, tough competitor.
Now I want to move on to the second round. Some games are still going on right now as we're recording this, but I want to focus on a fresh one that just ended not too long ago, Virginia versus Iowa. A double overtime win for Virginia. It's the first time a first four team has made it to the Sweet 16. They knocked off Georgia in the first round, and that was also another overtime win. So they played a lot of minutes this week. Kamora Johnson, 28 points, just an impressive guard for Virginia. I think this is the start of a Cinderella team, honestly, in this tournament, which is it's hard to see that right now. Not too many upsets, but this one has been an exciting one.
But you know what? They have taken on the personality of their coaches. They play with a lot of passion. Mox, I know Mox very well. Elisha Bond, who's on that staff, who I used to work with. And so I have friends on that staff. Their AD recruited me out of high school. She used to be assistant coach at Georgia. I'm not sure if you knew that. That's a nugget for you. Carla Williams used to be an assistant women's basketball coach at the University of Georgia back in the day, and who's now the AD at Virginia.
The basketball world is so small. Like,
Very, very small. So I am cheering for Virginia. I love the way they play. They have some special players there, and they are stepping up to the moment. That's called owning the moment, right? They are taking advantage of the opportunity that is given. They are fighting to the very end. No game is over until that thing is over. And so you like to see that people's dreams come true this time of year.
On that note, another dream that did not come true this week. Ole Miss losing to Minnesota yesterday. Amaya Battle hit a buzzer beater for Minnesota to send them to the Sweet
Sheesh.
16. Cody McMahon fouled out on a debatable call. Lots of hoopla on Twitter and Instagram about that,
It
right?
was debatable.
Yeah, yeah.
But there were some things that happened in that game also. You don't want to take credit away from Minnesota,
Right.
because even if you question, right, some of the calls or the officiating, which is going to happen, some are going to go your way, some are going to go your opponent's way. But the shot at the end of that game won by Ole Miss as well, because Minnesota had to then go back on the other end to
That's
score,
right.
right?
Yeah.
So the tie up by Lattimore, I believe it was,
Mhm.
on the baseline drive, shot, lays it up. Phenomenal play. Kid making a play. But you go down, I think, which was pretty solid defense. You just had a kid with a little bit better offense in that possession, rising up and making a play. And it was, as soon as she turned, I called it. I said, this is
Yeah.
in. Like, and it dropped straight
The
through.
pool watching it, and my friends are like, "Why are you looking at the TV?" I'm like, "Y'all just don't understand. Like, this is a big game, big moment right now." They're like, "They're already up a few points. Like, it's fine." I'm like, "You guys don't understand how basketball works. Like, 2 minutes left, and y'all only up by 3. That's like anything could
A
happen,
lifetime.
literally." And you speak about her turning around, making that jump shot again, having to come down on the other side of the court and make a play. What do you think about the home court advantage during March Madness? Because it was so loud in that arena. On
You know what?
I can only imagine in person.
But that's what you want.
Yeah.
You want people watching the game. Now, as a coach, you certainly would want them cheering for you instead of cheering for your opponent. However, I think with the makeup of the games and having the sites with the first 16 seeds I think it's to generate the support, right? Generate the fan base, generate the crowds, because such big environments, the games are so big, they mean so much to the players, and obviously there's money always involved, right? You have the gate fee and people coming in, fans. You want that, but I do understand how it can feel as a visiting team, right? That it's definitely an advantage for the home team,
Right.
but that's what they played all year for, right? To have that advantage. And had it been you with the advantage and you were a top 16 seed, you probably would not have any problems with it in that moment if they're all rooting for, because you're a Georgia Bulldog now, if they're all rooting for Georgia and you're at Georgia, you're like, this is great, right? But if you're playing that said team, you're not going to feel as great about it. But I would always like for fans to be a part of the atmosphere, if possible.
I don't know if you remember, I think we went to Minnesota. I think it would have been my sophomore year, maybe?
Oh, I remember.
Oh my gosh. I hate the way that court is designed because it's kinda like, Vanderbilt is also
Yes, it is a little
theirs is, like,
funky.
below the court, and I forgot about that until I was watching the game. Okay, now I wanna move on to Alabama versus Louisville today. This stat line stood out to me because I feel like when I was playing, whenever we would call a timeout, I remember the first thing being read to us most times is the battle on the boards. Like, are we out rebounding them? How are we doing in that area? And today, Louisville out rebounded Bama 44-24. You got out rebounded by 20 boards or boards in general. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, talk about why you guys talk about that in the huddle first off when we sit down.
Well, because the person who controls the rebounds typically controls the possessions, right? And I come from the old school. Pat Summitt was my coach. And she preached defense and rebounding all practice long. For her, it is what won championships. And she would say offense sells tickets. Defense and rebounding wins championships. I would always tell you guys as players, possession over position.
You know what's funny about that?
P over P, baby.
Whenever I'm calling a game, that sticks in my head so much. I hear myself saying that on air, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh."
Possession over position.
Think about it in the moment, but you guys are so right.
Because what happens is, as players, we get so caught up with, oh my God, I'm open and I'm right here, right? Get me the ball now. Get me the ball here, exactly where I want it. But as you know, there are defenders on the floor. There are hands involved. There are deflections that are happening. If you do not get the ball exactly where you want it, you have to go get it in order to maintain possession. You don't want to keep fighting for a position that it doesn't matter if you don't have the ball.
Right.
And so you have to control the boards and getting out. The fascinating stat is getting out rebounded and you lose by 1
Yeah.
with that margin. So it's not just rebounding. It's not just defense. There are other factors that can determine wins and losses. But by and large, that's a stat. You cannot lose by that margin and still win the game. It just makes it tough.
I want to go to Texas versus Oregon. Texas defeated Oregon, 40 points for Madison Booker. They outscored Oregon 28-8 in the third quarter. I mean, they came out and just punched them. So when you're at the half and you're in the locker room with your team, what do you say or use as motivation to keep them locked in? Because, basketball is a game of runs. A team could come back. How do you keep them engaged and motivated?
Look at you. You sound like a coach. You say just that because it is a game of runs. Anybody can make a run at any time. And you don't want to take your foot off the gas ever. If you're rebounding well, you challenge them to keep rebounding well, right? If you are running the floor in transition, getting out for easy layups, you challenge them to continue to sprint. Those are the things you have to do because you want to play almost perfect basketball as a coach all the time. And so even when you're winning by a huge margin, I guarantee there are things that you can adjust and you can do better. Maybe the team in the first half is not taking advantage of those mistakes that you're making because they're unable to. But most times teams adjust, they start to take advantage of those things, see your cracks. And so you always want to fix those things, even when you're winning by such a margin. You want to challenge your team to 20 more minutes. I guarantee you, Coach Avery, he was probably not saying, hey, we're cool, relax. He was saying, throw that 20 minutes away, right? We have a new 20 minutes. We're 0-0, come out with the same fire, same intensity, and let's make a play.
I feel like even if it wasn't him saying that, Madison Booker, Rory Harmon, they're just such competitors. I'm sure they're saying that in the locker room before Schaefer even comes in.
100%. Harmon is one of my favorite players to watch. She's a special talent. I think she's the engine that makes them go. Madison Booker, obviously, she's a generational talent. Generational. She has all the measurables. She looks a certain way, right? She has certain athletic ability, all of these things. But that young lady that controls the tempo, she's pretty special. Pretty special.
You talking about Madison Booker and just how she flows on the court, how she looks. I know we talked about this a lot when we were at Kentucky with Ryan Howard, just how it looks so effortless. It reminds me of her a little bit because it doesn't look like she's going extremely hard or trying her hardest, but she is. It just looks so efficient that
that's called I am really, really good.
Yeah.
And everybody around me is talented too. Don't get me wrong. There are a lot of talented players in the country, but there are certain levels and certain people who do this, who just do it better, right? You don't want to overthink it. The Sarah Strongs, the Madison Bookers, those folks are just special. And she's a special talent. They're generational players that possess such gifts. And you're right. You look at them and you're going, do this. And you look at the paper and, she has 40 and 15. And
You're like, what?
8, and, it's the stat lines are ridiculous.
Now, I know you have been able to go to a couple of Duke games this season. They'll face off with LSU in the Sweet 16. Obviously, LSU, a team that just plays at a rampant pace. You've played against them and coached against them 1,000 times. But what has stood out to you about Duke and them being led by Toby Fournier?
Leadership. Their leadership from the top. And when I say leadership, Kara Lawson, who's a friend, also a teammate, they have grit. They have the will and they have fight. I saw them early in the season, in person and on TV, and they've had some injuries and some things that they've been dealing with, but just the ability to stay the course, listen to coaching, take coaching, apply, and to continue to fight. This team is just tough. They have a toughness that they just will not go away. And I think the display of that was that Louisville game, that championship game in the ACC tournament. They've had a lot of tough games, but that game, they just refuse to lose. And a lot of that is the mentality of Kara Lawson and the rest of her staff. Obviously, Kyra Elzy is on that staff, and I'm biased towards the Duke staff. Those are my college teammates and friends, but they have a lot of good coaches on that staff, that Tia Jackson, that make them run well, and their ability to relate to their players and to deliver the message.
No, this is great. I'm really excited to tune into the Sweet 16. The rest of the games tonight, honestly, I'm like trying to balance doing homework, doing work, and also watching the games. I'm making it happen. So
Well,
I'm
you do that pretty well. You've had years of experience with balancing and doing all those things. So
no, when you guys told us, like, when you're athletes, you feel tired, you won't feel tired until you're done, you get into the real world. I'm like semi there. I still have a little buffer, but like I get it now. Like I thought a day was long. No, I understand a day can get very, very long.
very, 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 very long.
No, that's real. Well, thanks for tuning in to Bracket Busters. Another big thanks to Coach Naya Butts for giving us some insights into March as a coach. I'm your host, Naya Leveretter, and we'll see you next week after the Sweet 16 right here on Bracket Busters presented by Five Wins.